So today we're going to be talking about prospecting database and what you need to be able to have a look at in terms of cleaning it up and the efficiencies you can gain. My name's Dave Curry. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at The List. There's my contact information. I'll also make that available at the end of the session as well, should you want to reach out directly. So the topic, clean up your prospect database, a health check for your new business ecosystem. So it's certainly a hot topic. This is normally the time of year when prospecting efforts are at their highest, either looking to clean your slate and begin a proactive outbound effort or scale an existing one that you may have. As I mentioned in the invitation, bad data is bad business, and there's certainly a cost to it. We're going to address that directly. You're wasted time and missed new business opportunities. So this presentation sort of talks a little bit about that. I'll give you an easy set of steps to quickly get a health check, cleanse, update, and enhance your prospecting database or databases. I'll also provide a couple of examples of how your peer group are using key tools like The List to create and maintain that healthy environment. There's really 4 ecosystem elements that we're going to break down a little bit further. Certainly there's people, and in this age of content marketing and thought leadership, certainly the content that you're putting in front of those people is key. The distribution channels that you use and the conversion tactics in place. Today we're going to be focusing primarily on the people, or more directly, how those people are organized in your prospect database. A couple of key questions. One is, how healthy is that ecosystem? You know, I mentioned bad data is bad business. We really look at this as an ecosystem in terms of trying to keep it in balance. And the time in which you invest in balancing out that ecosystem certainly pays dividends in the results that you see. One of the other questions that normally comes up is, how many contacts are in there? And in there may be your CRM, your marketing automation platform, your email marketing suite, even your Outlook or Gmail contacts book. So when you start to think about where your new business database or prospecting databases are, there's a myriad of different places that these spreadsheets or data sets exist. So we're going to have a look at ways to bring all of those things together and get them cleaned up. Another one is, yeah, Dave, we've got a great big database of 10,000 contacts when we put all of our spreadsheets together. I don't really know the last time that it was cleaned, but more specifically, I don't really have a good grasp of the number or types of titles that we have in there. We've got everyone from CEO to CFOs to brand managers, brand directors, marketing directors, sales people of various different types and natures, and it really hasn't been scrubbed or had a good look at in the last couple of years. So the types of titles are also very important in terms of the content and distribution of that content, getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And ultimately, what's your confidence of accuracy of all of that data? If it hasn't been looked at in a couple of years, chances are the levels of accuracy aren't particularly high. Just a quick question here from the audience. I was just pausing there for a moment. As I mentioned right at the beginning, I will make a copy of this presentation and the recording available following the session. So a quick email will pop out after the session late this afternoon with a copy of the materials and a link through to that as well. So really it comes down to your database integrity. And we've got to really think about the fact that obviously change happens. We've all changed roles, and we certainly see those of our prospects that change roles. People move around. They move on brands. They move between companies. And keeping track of them is certainly not your highest and best use of time. I'm going to provide you our first example here. And this was an ad tech company. And this ad tech company really had a need to proactively market and sell themselves. They were wasting time chasing ghosts in a prospect list. So what they were finding was that they hadn't really updated their database in about 12 months. And within that time, especially in the ad tech space, people had moved on, they'd moved around, and they were essentially chasing people that didn't exist within those organizations any longer. So therefore, they had no confidence in the prospect database. They didn't proactively market or sell from that database. So inevitably, they find another way to get around it to hit their sales numbers. But they still found that they were spending way too much time researching and not enough time selling. So the decision was made. It was time to make a change to that, find a way to spend more time selling than researching, and obviously take advantage of the highest and best use of their time. So yes, this is a lot of data, but everyone's seen this type of stuff. This is the actual database. It's 12 months old from the time that they cobbled it together. Doesn't look too bad, right? I mean, you can basically see you've got first, last, title, company, main phone, a couple of direct dials, some email addresses, and on the far right-hand side, LinkedIn as a field in their Salesforce. Now, it doesn't look too bad until you start to highlight the gaps. It's quite a bit orange. Not too bad. You know, those are the fields that are actually missing. Certainly, direct dial is one of the biggest. Probably followed there by email, and obviously LinkedIn addresses weren't fulfilled for any of those contacts. So the initial review, we're basically highlighting what's missing. Not particularly hard to do. You can certainly do this pretty quickly in Excel. The next one was finding the holes and errors, and this is where you're really starting to spend a lot of time. In this particular example, we were highlighting the wrong person and missing information. Get to about 39% in this particular example. So 39% of their data was either wrong or missing, and that's by number of rows. So it becomes quite a substantial data set as you're starting to look at it from that way. So once you understand and you've done this triage of where is the issue, then you can start to look at a healthy outcome and filling in all of those aspects from the missing job titles or changed job titles that needed to change, filling in direct dial phone numbers where they're available, obviously filling in verified email addresses and LinkedIn addresses as well to see your degrees of separation from those individuals. This is a database report for an agency that we're actually in the process of being compiled today. So this is one of the types of outcomes that we provided to this ad tech client. And you can see that there were 4 data sheets here. You can see the totals, the validation email match was able to match 46% of, almost 47% of the database up against the list. And then you can see the health items, duplicate contacts, missing emails, free email addresses, which are notoriously bad, missing company detail, missing main phone, missing primary address, as well as direct dial, social links, and verified job titles. There's a lot of data there that's very time intensive to update. So this is an example of a health check report. What we find across advertising agencies, marketing services firms, ad tech groups, and media properties is that the database integrity erosion is about 35% compounding per annum. Now, that may not be alarming, but it is when you start to look at and think about when the last time you did a complete cleanse of your new business database. And typically, if I'm talking to an agency or an ad tech group, we're talking years, not 6 months, 12 months. It may be 3 to 5 years since a good purge and clean was done. So you start to find that losing trust in that database creeps in on you pretty quickly. So in this scenario, which is one that I ran 2 weeks ago, let's say that you've got 2,000 contacts in your database. It's 2 years since it was last cleaned. What does that actually then look like? Well, compounding at that rate, 845 of the 2,000 are going to be incorrect in one way, shape, or form, and likely incorrect enough to spend time wasting chasing ghosts. So basically, that translates to 42% of your database is garbage. Now, that's not to say that it can't be resurrected, but without change, you're going to be looking at a good portion of your time prospecting being chewed up unnecessarily. So obviously impeding your effectiveness, and no doubt everyone on this call understands that their time is of greatest value. So really, it's a pretty simple solution. Low difficulty, but has high impact. These are the types of solutions that I'm always looking for within this organization, and certainly in making recommendations for our clients. Really pretty simple to begin with. The audit, append, refine, and maintain. Typically, the first 3 are done pretty well by most. But what's left out is the maintenance program, like scheduled maintenance on your vehicle. Having a scheduled maintenance program in place reduces the compounding annual effect of that database integrity challenge that most everyone faces. So as we sort of put this into a cycle, what I'm going to do today is break it down a little bit further from that into having the right strategy going into it first, gathering up all of the content, all of those prospect databases that you have hidden in various places throughout the organization, going through the process of triage, treatment, enhancement, and then maintenance. There's really 5 key questions that you want to be able to answer, or that you'll get answered out of this process. 1, why do you even need a prospect database? this is probably the thing that's most overlooked. It may sound incredibly simple, but truly understanding the purpose of creation of a prospect database is key. Is it just to send out an email newsletter once a month? Is it specifically broken down into job, role, and functional titles of specific industries, which you're getting, maybe you're doing a social media program out to, maybe it's a combination of webcasts, email marketing, and social media, maybe it's a direct mail campaign. Really understanding the need of the database, the purpose of the database, is essential before undertaking any next step. And quite often overlooked. It's just we need to either clean up what we've got or add to what we've got without really defining what the purpose is first. So coming up with the right strategy, number one, that's key. Secondly, getting a really good grasp of what you have today. Rarely do I work with people who truly understand the exact nature of what they have as an asset today in terms of their total database, just simply because it hasn't been audited in such a long time. And there's usually multiple databases. They've got, the CRM database. They've got maybe a separate marketing automation or email marketing database. Certainly, they've got a LinkedIn database of their own. But what about a combined LinkedIn database of their team? The whole range of different sources, and really having a good understanding of what you have today, how accurate that is, and the purpose that it serves, pretty key. So really, in this process, we're talking about that as the audit. From there, you're able to understand and answer what needs to change. And in working with someone like ourselves or a data provider in the space or a data analyst in the space, you're really able to see, like we saw in the past example, what needs to change. Do you have the correct job title? Do you have the correct email address? Do you even have an email address or job title for that individual or the brands that they're associated to? So third is understanding the need for change within that data structure, and the language around that is certainly pretty simple for append. Number four, who or what needs to be added. Recently I wrote a blog post on buyer groups and the importance of buyer groups in accelerating the sales cycle. If you maybe just have one or two marketing contacts or media contacts of a specific brand or agency, but they may not be the entire buyer group that you're looking to engage, perhaps there's another 6 or 7 people within that organization, specifically with decision-making authority, especially from a group setting situation, that you need to have as part of your communication strategy. So who or what needs to be added certainly can be who in terms of additional people of the right title within the organization, and the what may be different types of information on them. Maybe it's their email address, maybe it's their LinkedIn profile, maybe it's their LinkedIn handle. So there's a variety of different data fields that you can certainly look to add within each of those data structures, not only the who. So I'm going to use the terminology enhancement for answering number 4. And number 5, how to future-proof the process. This is the piece of maintenance that I was talking about at the beginning of the session today. This is the single largest missing piece of ecosystem integrity from a marketing and sales perspective within the groups that are on this call today. It simply just doesn't happen, and it's through no fault of the organization typically. It's just not one of those things that gets a lot of priority because you don't really see the impact until it's too late. So future-proofing is really the key to this, and it's a very simple thing to do. Now I say that, but typically the first question is, okay Dave, so where do I start? The first thing I want to understand, and the teams here want to understand, is how toxic is the environment we're walking into. And it's certainly something that you may not have completely have your arms around. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step process of how to approach this. They're pretty easy steps. I thought this was an appropriate slide given that it's spring, first day of spring yesterday, and there's probably quite a few people who are thinking about getting out there and doing the old Rocky jump to the run to the top of the stairs program, myself included. So here are a few steps. Now I do understand that these are quite small, so I will do my best to talk through these slowly. But again, there's a spoiler alert, there's a slide beyond this which goes into more detail with larger print. So the first is strategy. We talked a little bit about this. The actions to be taken on the clean data once you've got it cleaned, what's needed and what's not. So really, what's the purpose of going through and having a prospecting database to begin with? Second, to gather the information. This is simply going into your CRM, your marketing automation, your email platform, your Outlook, and exporting all of that data, all of those databases into manageable XLS or CSV files. It's rare that you're able to actually do this effectively. There are data append tools that you can get through app exchanges and so forth, but in my experience in doing this dozens and dozens and many dozens of times, getting it into a manageable application like Microsoft Excel as a CSV file allows you to be much more efficient in working the data and then pulling it back in. So the fourth is then triage, which is really determining where are the holes, why do those holes matter, if at all, and determining the actions required. That's sort of phase one. 1, 2, and 3 are the first things that you can do internally pretty easily. Number 4 is then treating it. So finding a good data source, filling in the holes, replacing bad data. Enhancing is getting more of the right contacts and information on those people. And then 6, the maintenance. It's a good practice to go through the steps at least twice annually. So if you're doing a data cleanse assignment or project and undertaking that at 1st of January, certainly by June you want to be going back through that, and then again in December. That would be an absolute minimum. The amount of time that you're looking at investing in this type of process compared to the impact that it can have on the organization is significant. You know, if you look at the 35% compounding change rate of databases in this category that we all work in, looking at it at 6 months, you're still looking at considerable change that's occurring within that 6-month window. But the good news is it gets much easier. The more frequently you do this, certainly the less change needs to be updated on a scheduled program. So rather than just 6 steps, I like to look at it as 6 steps to repeat. And if you're a fan of cycles, here's how it looks in a cycle. So get the right strategy, gather the information together, triage where the problems are, treat it. Enhancing is really just adding to getting more of the right types of people and the right types of information. And then the maintenance cycle is just going through that process over and over again. In all probability, your strategy is going to change. And from my experience, it's typically changing on a 6-month basis. Now, it might not be changing it completely, going in the exact opposite direction in terms of strategy, but certainly a strategy review every 6 months is pretty typical. So time and resources. Our customers tell us that this is an incredibly time-intensive process to undergo. So it rarely, if ever, gets done, which is why I suspect that there's so many on this call today. If the project is ever undertaken, it's typically between 2,000 and 20,000 records. That's sort of the norm. You may have many, many more than this, but when they're consolidated and deduped, it typically ends up as a database set anywhere between 2,000 and 20,000 records. That's sort of like the bulk curve of the examples that I typically see. And it generally takes, if done internally within your organization, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to go through that. The reason that it takes 3 to 6 weeks is typically they're using Microsoft Excel, a combination of the list, LinkedIn, Hoovers, Data.com, any of those, and then handing it off to a marketing coordinator or an intern or a series of interns to start going through it. Now, the problem is there's very little strategy that's been put against it, if any at all. And therefore, an actual desired outcome isn't well defined. So the data, once this process has been done internally, typically doesn't necessarily yield the types of results that you in the business development function or the marketing function are ultimately looking for. So it's really, again, not the highest and best use of their time, nor yours, getting that outcome. The list does this in less than 3 days for our clients. So you can see quite a considerable change in time best spent. This is what our data analysts do all day, every day. They're experts in this space. They can save you a lot of time and therefore let you concentrate on where it's best spent. their expertise is in defining and then maintaining those healthy prospecting ecosystems. And it's really this 6-step program of defining the right strategy, working with you on strategy, gathering the right content, the prospects from various databases. We've accepted databases on written pages, Post-it notes, Excel spreadsheets. I know you've got Post-it notes on your screen as you're watching this, so getting those into some sort of manageable, verified database where you can actually organize, sort, and rank your pursuits, certainly a much better use of your time and ability for you to yield better results out of that. So the first step, the health check. What does this really mean? The health check from our perspective is those first 3 that I mentioned, the strategy, the gathering, and the triage. It's really getting a good understanding of what have you got. It answers those first few questions of why are we doing this, what's the purpose, who do we already have, what's our confidence in who we have in the database right now, where are the holes, and what does that mean to us. So that first phase, that health check, is a really good, very limited time-based program to have get a good sense of where you're at. Basically what we do is we match your prospect database up against the list. And the list is verified, every contact in the list is verified every 120 days by phone. So what we're doing is we're basically taking the list that is a maximum of 120 days old and bumping your database up against it. What we do is a 2-part match, one on email address and the second on last name and company. So it's certainly not going to match everyone in your database, nor clean the entire thing. But what we can do, what our clients have seen has been really helpful, is match all of their existing databases up against the list to improve the accuracy levels and obviously fill in the blanks of where they need additional data appended, and then look at like titles and like companies to enhance that data set. The second part of it is then the treatment options. So treatment is, as I mentioned, filling in the blanks, building up the database with more of the right types of contacts, and then maintaining it. As I mentioned a few slides back, on the maintenance side of things, at least twice annually is the best practice of updating these databases. So really what it means is just putting in a very simple process of export, health check, enhancement, and import on a 6-month basis as a minimum. Now, none of those things are required. It's just we see a lot better results with clients running marketing and sales programs where the databases are clean. It's not complicated. So rather than go through that yet again, it is really a cycle, and ultimately it's there to save you time. So getting a good understanding of what you're working with is certainly critical. Knowing who you're prospecting to and knowing all of the potential decision makers that may influence your sale, whether it's stalling it or accelerating it, is certainly key. And ultimately, guys, it's really looking for the highest and best use of your time. So those things, when they come together, certainly allow you to sell more.